Another person that was very important in Bobby Orlando's music career from 1984 through 1997, Tony Marinello was his right hand. He wrote many songs, just to mention few. I Want a Man, Dancing Medley Backwards, Once Is Not Enough. Tony was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, on February 14, 1964.
Well, I've always been a big fan of the 70s and disco and dance music, and I bought drum machines early on, little drum machines, a little synthesizer, and I just started playing around, fiddling around, and I realized I have a knack for this, and my family was like, wow, you're amazing. So I just started making demos, and to make a long story short, back in the mid-80s, I sent my demos down to Bobby Orlando in New York, big disco producer who produced Divine, the Pet Shop Boys, the Flirts, Ronnie Griffith. And Bobby loved my demos. And to make a long story short, I came down to New York in the mid-80s. I worked for Bobby Orlando for quite a few years, and I made 500 amazing dance songs with Bobby Orlando, released quite a few.
Another person that played a big role in Bobby Orlando's music career, the record owner, producer, and husband of Claudia Barry, Jürgen Kordelech. Jürgen was responsible for Bobby Orlando to perform live in Germany back 1985 at the famous rock-pop music hall. Jürgen played the keyboards. In 1981, Bobby put out a new record by the Flirts called Passion for O Records, which Orlando admits was simple, a knockoff of his previous hit Desire by Ronnie Griffith. Originally, Passion was recorded by Bernadette O'Reilly and Kim Fay. Later was recorded with the voice of Andrea Del Conte. The record became a huge worldwide hit. Bobby also signed to his label Divine and signed a distribution deal with Vanguard Records. Through that deal, they released Shoot Your Shot by Divine and Jukebox by the Flirts, both of which were substantial dance hits. At this point, Bobby Orlando was a very hot disco producer.
I feel the reason why that's good is that you never know where your hit is going to be. The ones you think are hits don't, and the ones you think are throwaways hit.
Some more records that Bobby Orlando released for O Records before opening his new record label, Bobcat.
Divine was the greatest. His name was Harris Milstead, a very nice guy. I worked with him for a period of about 2 years, then he went on to work with Pete Waterman. We did 1.5 to 2 albums with him, of course songs like Made of Love. Shoot Your Snot, both of them very successful. We would play off each other quite a lot. Working with him was a real blessing, and I'm glad that we did get a chance to work together. He traveled quite a bit. On the road he did lots of club dates, but he and I were fine together. It was his manager. His manager and I had kind of a falling out. He was a nice guy, but we just didn't see eye to eye on a few things. There was a lot of miscommunication and misunderstanding. Since then, we've had a chance to make amends to each other, to iron out the personal stuff. Everything has worked out well from that point on. But also, Divine's parents are beautiful, beautiful people. They live in Florida, and I've had the pleasure of meeting them.
And Warner Brothers Records approached him for a major deal. When Maynard Solomon eventually refused the deal, Bobby left O Records with Vanguard, but also set up a new label called Bobcat Records in 1982. Bobcat soon signed a distribution with CBS Records, and Orlando decided his best approach to keep up a heavy release schedule. Bobby next signed the Pet Shop Boys, and put out a record called West End Girls through his arrangement.
By the summer of 1983, Neil working as a journalist for the UK pop music magazine Smash Hits. one of his assignments took him to New York to interview the police. Neil and Chris had become fascinated with dance records made by the New York producer Bobby Orlando. Neil arranged to have lunch with Bobby O at the Applejack restaurant in New York City. On August 19, 1983, they shared a cheeseburger and carrot cake.
Chris had introduced me to this New York producer, Bobby Orlando. This, slightly punky electronic dance music. And then I saw in the Dumper Box, Bobby Orlando brought out millions of records. There were quite a lot of records, and I was sent by Smash Hits on a very short trip to New York for literally 36 hours. I said to Chris, I'm going to phone up Bobby O. And he said, come over, hey, we'll have a cheeseburger. And we went to have a cheeseburger, and he said, I told him about what we were doing. He said, well, let's make a record. Anyway, amazingly, we were back only 3 or 4 weeks later, and in the studio in Times Square. And the first thing we recorded them was, let's make lots of money.
I mess around with jerks. My car's parked outside. I'm afraid it doesn't work. I'm looking for a partner, someone who gets things fixed. Ask yourself this question: do you want to be rich? I got the brains, you got the looks. Let's make lots of money.
Eventually, a single had to be chosen, and in April of 1984, the first single was Western End Girls.
Sometimes you're better off dead. There's a gun in your hand, it's pointing at your head. You think you're mad, too unstable, kicking in chairs and knocking down tables in a restaurant in a West End town. Call the police, there's a madman around, running down underground to a dive bar in a West End town. In a West End town, a dead end world. The East End boys and West End girls.
It became a USA club hit in areas such as Los Angeles and San Francisco, and a minor hit in some European territories, including France and Belgium. In the UK, it was only available via import. It couldn't get into the top 100. The second single, One More Chance.
I remember when you said, baby, baby, please give me one more chance, just give me one more chance, just give me one more.
Released in 1984, failed to the charts. After extensive negotiations, the Pet Shop Boys would leave their contract with Bobby O.
Well, actually, we had that song very early on, probably in 1983. We did an original demo of that song with the producer Bobby Orlando. Bobby, he was working with Divine and some bands called the Flirts, and and also his solo stuff as well. Yep. Now, we had known Bobby O since the punk days. Bobby O produced the Fast first record in 1976. So we had known when Mickey and I, my brother, when we decided to start doing electronic music, we said Bobby was starting to get pretty popular in 1982, 83. Yep. So we gave him a call because we were friends, and we said, we're going to not be a rock and roll band anymore, and we wanted to do something a little bit different. And we went into the studio with him, and we started doing some electronic demos, and Male Stripper actually was one of them. And we never released it, and it just stayed with us